Welcome to Ciao Bella, hosted by me, Erica Firpo, a travel journalist based in Rome. Each episode of Ciao Bella, I sit down with Italy's creators, contemporary artists and artisans, designers, culinary experts, heritage brands, and innovative aesthetes, and more who are defining and redefining 21st century Italy. Pull up a chair and join in.
Ciao, Erica. Okay, I'm kidding.
I expect to hear that on this podcast. I expect to hear, Erica.
I'm here with Erica.
Hey, welcome back to Ciao Bella. Today I am at Ciampini, my favorite cafe in Rome, with one of my favorite people who, actually I think she is the only person I allow to enjoy this experience with me outside of my family. I'm going to give my family credit. I'm with Arlene Gibbs. Hey, Arlene.
Ciao, Erica.
I was waiting for that. Arlene, aside from being a great friend of mine, I'm so proud to have her on my podcast today and proud to brag about her. She is a screenwriter, the co-writer of Jumping the Broom, which is a great weekend rom-com if you need one. And I think we all need one. She's the writer of The Return of Mrs. Tracy Higgins. Did I get The Rebirth. Thank you. You can always tell me. And so, yeah, super creative. But it's not just the left brain, it's the right brain too. She's an interior designer, and I'm so happy because if you follow her Instagram, which is at Arlene Antoinette Gibbs, you get a peek into her world of the interiors that she is designing, which leads me to because you're not a triple threat, you become a quadruple threat because...
Quadruple?
Yeah. You wrote a book.
Right.
You co-wrote a movie.
Right.
You're an interior designer, and here's the quadruple. She's the host and the designer of Reno Italiano on HDTV.
Grazie, Erica. You make me sound fantastical.
You are fantastic. And if everybody could see her right now, which you will see because you're going to go over to Ciao Bella and look at the pictures, she's got an incredible smile, too, that I always tell her about because I love it. And it cheers me up all the time. But we're not talking about you. We're going to talk about design.
Yes, interior design here in Italy.
Well, you know, I'm gonna go on a limb. You didn't grow up here.
No, I did not. Please excuse me. This is my first podcast. I'm quite nervous.
It's something, you are the most relaxed speaker I know. There's nothing to be nervous about.
Okay. No, I did not grow up in Italy. I am not Italian. I did, however, grow up or spent my formative years in a town called Verona, New Jersey. When I was 10, my parents were from the Caribbean. They are from the island of St. Martin, the French side.
I just want you to say that again. The French side.
The French side.
Because she's very particular about that.
That is how I'm able to live and work legally in Italy because I have a French passport. But I grew up in the United States, which is why I really don't speak French, much to my chagrin. But anyway, I was born in New York City. And then when I was 10, my parents moved us to Verona. So my sister claims it was my destiny to live in Italy one day, which is so funny.
Very Shakespearean.
I always saw myself living abroad at some point, but I thought it would be Paris or London or, in the Caribbean. But Italy was never on my radar at all. I mean, I wasn't thinking about Rome, wasn't thinking about Italy. And then I came here in 2005 for the first time, and it just felt like home the minute I got off the plane. And everyone thinks that's nuts. My Italian friends are like, I don't know why you would think that. And my friends in LA, where I was living at the time, thought, oh, it's not about Italy. It's about where you were in life or where you weren't in life. You could have gone to Ames, Iowa, and had the same reaction, but no, that's not true.
So then you moved here in 2008.
3 years, yeah. 3 years basically to the month of that first trip I moved. And it's funny that my dad is one of the people who kind of helped set those wheels in motion because I thought I would move here, once I was retired. When I was older, it was definitely, something for the future. And I was working on a movie in Toronto, and we had just wrapped, and we're getting ready to go back to LA. I was talking to my dad, and my parents had moved back to the Caribbean after they retired. And my father said to me, I don't know why you're waiting. Like, what, nothing is guaranteed to us, And you're not living in LA, you're just existing. And this shook me to my core, because if you know anything about, it's not even just being like first generation American and having, parents from foreign country. It's also the fact that they're Caribbean. If you know anything about that culture, it's not a go follow your bliss kind of culture. It's more like, why aren't you a doctor, engineer, a lawyer? Like, why didn't you get a master's or an advanced degree? So for him to say that to me really made me think, and he was right. I mean, I loved the job that I had at the time. I like LA now. I wasn't a fan. I lived there for 10 years, and I was really unhappy and probably slightly depressed for 10 years. I did not realize it until I moved.
You came here in 2008. I think one of the things that ever since we've been friends that I've noticed is you have an incredibly supportive family. You've told me a lot about your family and how, being Caribbean. Oh God, I always do this with you. Right. I doubt the way I say it.
No, because some people say like Pirates of the Caribbean. I think it was Pirates of the Caribbean. But a lot of people from the Caribbean say Caribbean.
Yes,
I say Caribbean because that's what I grew up saying. But sometimes I say Caribbean.
Well,
I don't know.
I think this might be a Philadelphia thing. I think that in Philadelphia you say Caribbean.
No, I think in the Caribbean. I mean, I think in Philadelphia you say Caribbean because I think that's like an East Coast.
And then West
thing.
Coast, do they say?
Maybe they say cat.
Oh. But I will say, no, I know you. But I will say, talking about your parents, and especially because anytime that I've had any child rearing issues, I often, most of the time, possibly every single time, call you,
which is hilarious because I don't have children.
But you give me the Caribbean. You're like, this is what we do. This is what my mom would do. And I'm like, oh, okay. So on that, it's strict. You're, and especially that kind of first generation kid. They're really a first child.
And I'm the first child. Right, I'm the oldest. Yeah.
But your parents and your brother and sister, younger sister, little sister, have been incredibly supportive and have been the ones really to kind of push you out of the nest across the ocean, and now we're in Rome.
Right.
And I think when I first met you, you were writing 24/7, 5 a.m. to 5 p.m., never taking a break. And then what happened? All of a sudden, you just woke up and were like, I'm a designer?
No. I wish. Actually, you know what? I appreciate it now, but at the time, I did not see it this way. So I co-wrote, I wrote this script called Jumping the Broom. And it was based on an idea that this producer and writer, Elizabeth Hunter, had pitched to me when I was at another production company. It was back in LA. And so I wrote the script as a spec, and I remember my manager at the time was like, that's a waste of time. That's such a small movie. No one's going to buy it. And not only was it bought, it was also made. And then Elizabeth Hunter and I, worked on it together, and she was the other writer on the movie, and she did all the rewrites and everything. And so the movie came out, and it did well. I mean, relative to the cost, the budget, it was over 2,000 screens. It was considered like a success. And almost 10 years later, it's still running. I mean,
no, every time, like, my sister will be like, haha, look what I could watch this weekend. It's like, you know how they do.
Netflix,
it's on Netflix.
Lifetime.
But
it's on BET.
It's like when you look, because since I don't have, American cable, but my sister will be, like they do the list of all the shows, and it's like, jump in the broom again.
And it was on Netflix Italia. I mean, and, because of Valentine's Day, every Valentine's Day, they're like, these are the romantic comedies that you could watch. Blah, blah, blah. And it's always listed. There was a article on BuzzFeed. Can you recognize these wedding dresses? And they had Sabrina's wedding dress from Jumping the Broom. So the thing is, it was really, it did very well. And yet, I mean, this is pre-Black Panther. This is pre-everything. People are like, whatever. It's a niche. It's considered a niche film because it stars Black people. And, and it stars only, I put that in quotes, Angela Bassett, da-da-da-da-da.
Who's Angela Bassett?
And at that point, I was so frustrated and just fed up because I had been in the business, for 12, 13, 15 years. I don't even remember. And then also people were saying things to me. This agent was like, well, I like her work, but, she's basically, I'm too old. And she doesn't live here. And I said, what difference does it make if I don't live in LA full time? I will come out for meetings. I said, there are all these writers who live in the UK, British writers who live in the UK, who live in London, and they work in Hollywood all the time. And their response was, well, they're British. You're not Italian. There's no reason for you to live in Italy.
Again, because you're not Italian, you can't work in Italy and live in Italy and work in LA.
And
I'm just going to say pandemic.
A lot has changed since then. But so what I said was, that's it. It's a wrap for me. I'm done. I'm just so done. And I had a meeting. I was thinking, I always loved interior design. My first job out of college, I worked in, home furnishings. I was in a buying program at Bloomingdale's. And I thought, maybe I'll go back to school. So before that, I had a coffee with Elizabeth McKeely, whose husband happens to be an architect. And I tell her about, what I'm thinking. And she said, okay, before you spend money, well, first of all, we weren't even sure what school I would go to. Before you spend money to get a master's, you should talk to a designer here. And I met Ilaria Miani, and I thought it was going to be more like an information interview, and she ended up hiring me as an intern.
So let me give a little podcast check right here. So Ilaria Miani is a great interior designer in Italy who's done a lot of villas in Tuscany. And if you've been following my podcast, I've also interviewed, there was a podcast where I spoke with the owner of Monteverdi in Tuscany, and it's this beautiful, almost like a hamlet that he's taken over and created this luxury retreat resort kind of place, and it's all designed by Ilaria Miani. So, it's not that you just walked down the street and found qualsiasi designer. You worked with Italy's top designer.
And it was really an eye-opening experience. First of all, I realized I really didn't speak Italian. And I'd freak out every time they would leave me in a showroom by myself. I'm like, please don't ring. Because when I had picked up the phone, it was like, all I could do was like, buonasera, buongiorno. Anyway, it was a fantastic experience. And there was an architect there named Olympia Stacchi. And I worked with her a lot. And actually, Monteverde, they were working on Monteverde when I was there. And
I remember you told me that.
And before my internship was, and also let me just backtrack. I probably was the oldest intern in the entire world, but I learned so much from that experience. And before my internship was up, I had my first client. So people hearing this might think, oh my gosh, it was just like a walk in a park. No, it wasn't, because there were a couple things. First of all, I did not know until I started my internship that interior design as an industry or as a business, the way we know it in America and the UK, does not exist in Italy. There are a couple decorators, but there's no interior designers, there's no decorators. If you want to do interiors in Italy, you become an architect, and there are a lot of architects here. There are more architects in Rome than the entire country of France, that's what I was told. Or 4 times the amount of architects than in London, and London is a much bigger city. Everybody and their mother is an architect. There are not that many jobs for architects. So it's not the most lucrative field, especially in a city like Rome.
Let's talk a little bit more about the design in that, all of a sudden, well, no, I'm not going to say all of a sudden, because I know it was a lot of hard work, and I know it was an accrual of projects that started happening. So I remember when you were in Tuscany, or I think it was the farmhouse. I've seen the projects that you've done in Rome, and I know that all of this started. You would talk about your falegname. You would talk about, I think it's the fabbro. I mean, you were talking
the fabbro, right?
Yeah,
the blacksmith.
The blacksmith. Like your projects were not simply my experience with interior design prior to talking with you about it was like somebody just like paints your apartment and finds you furniture. What you started doing, and that I was like, this is really like amazing, because what you're doing is you're working with handcraft artisans. And that's something that I wouldn't say is entirely unique to Italy, but it is Italian culture.
Yes, it is. And it's not, I think in the States, a lot of times when you have things custom made, they're much more expensive than the same quality if you were to buy it retail. Whereas in Italy, sometimes it's actually less expensive to have something custom made by your carpenter or by your blacksmith than to buy it in the store at the same quality.
So when you say custom made, what kind of things are we talking about? Can you give us some examples?
Well, I've had beds, like a canopy bed made out of iron, ferro. It is ferro, right? I've had that made. I've had, walk-in closets completely handmade by a carpenter. I've had sofas and armchairs made again, all custom, everything, the frame, the upholstery, everything. And that's a good example. For example, couches are not cheap. They're not. And if you buy a very good quality couch, it's going to be thousands and thousands of dollars. But if you have it made, it's going to be thousands and thousands of
But it's going to be with you.
But it'll be with you for years and years and years. And you could also, replace the upholstery. The quality that you're getting because I know this upholsterer. I know the tapissiere. I know the workshop.
What's a tapissiere?
Upholsterer.
That's the upholsterer.
Right.
Actually, so I think that's one of the, for me, was one of those eye-opening things was when you started talking about this, and then I live in a neighborhood that has Via della Falegname, for example, and there are still some wood makers left, and there are still some in Rome itself. I know that a lot, but I know the amazing thing is you were not simply sourcing from Rome. I know that you would talk about going out, or your fabbro, who's in the country somewhere.
Yeah, close to Viterbo.
Yeah, I mean that's not quite. You created this incredible network. Now, I also think what's pretty cool is the easy part of your job is that you just happen to be in a country that has incredible design.
Yes, I mean, and it's very inspiring. And not to say that there isn't incredible design in the United States. There is, but it seems less accessible in a way. It's similar to food, how arugula is basically a weed, and everybody here eats arugula. It's not fancy pants food. But in the States, it's kind of because it's elitist or something. It's just, no, it's beauty is all around you, and everybody appreciates the beauty. It's expected, it's normal. You go to, you're going to a Sunday lunch and you stop by a pastry, the way it's wrapped, it's beautiful. It's not like it's a special occasion or you're going for someone's birthday. It's just Sunday lunch or maybe a Sunday dinner. And it's just expected. And it's not about, it's not something that's just for people who are wealthy. It's even with the custom, having things custom made, it doesn't mean that you have a ton of money. It means that that this piece of furniture, if you have, let's say, a coffee table made, you're going to hand it down. It's going to last for a very long time.
So I know you've done properties, apartments in Rome, villa outside in Tuscany, but really what I wanted to talk to you about is Reno Italiano, because that was a cool project that I got to hear about from you for, I think you worked on it for 18 months, maybe 2 years?
No, that wasn't 2 years. It was yes, when the whole thing started, with the sizzle reel, when they first reached out. Yes, that process.
So as a friend, I okay, let's not call it worked on. I know the story from its
right.
Its germ
Although
of inception.
I was not able to share with Erica what network. Well, I didn't know in the beginning what network it was. I didn't know anything other than they wanted to shoot a sizzle.
So a network reached out to you and said,
no, a producer.
A producer.
Right. The production company. Okay, let me back up. So there's a Facebook group for expats. There are a couple of them. And I've stopped reading or going on those sites just because they're very negative. So a lot of Americans just complaining about Italy all the time. It's basta. So I happened to go on this day. I don't know why, but after maybe a year and a half, I just literally happened to be on Facebook, saw that a production company in America was looking for interior designers or decorators for potential project in Italy. So I sent my website, I sent an email, and they called me immediately, and that started the whole process. And in the beginning, they didn't say if they had a network in mind that they wanted to pitch me to. And then I got a call one day, and they said, oh, you know what, we want to do a sizzle reel, and it's going to be for HGTV. And my mouth just dropped, wait, what? And we want to shoot in 2 weeks in July in Rome. I was cracking up because you mean September, right? Because nothing happens in August. They're like, no, we want to shoot this month, but we made it happen. We figured it out.
So tell me about the project, because it wasn't simply let's do a sizzle reel. It became a project that wasn't in Rome.
Right. So we do the sizzle reel, and for those who don't know, sizzle reel basically is just we shot for 4 days, but it's 3 minutes of basically giving the network an idea of what the show could be. And then after that, if they like it, you get to go to pilot. So they called me. They're like, we're going to pilot. It was So then you have to find the right project, the clients, et cetera, et cetera. And for me, this is a very unusual process because I'm used to I meet the clients, and we work together on the house. This was a little different in that we were brought together because of the show.
So first of all, let's just localize where it is. It's in Arpino,
Okay,
right?
so it's Arpino is about an hour and 15 minutes south of Rome, really right between Rome and Naples. It's
There's some Darius keeps telling me there's some archaeological site there.
there is.
I have no idea.
And
what it is.
it's the birthplace of Cicero.
Oh, that's what he keeps saying.
Yeah. And it's really beautiful region of Italy, and not a lot of people know that. Everybody knows like Tuscany, Umbria.
It's still Lazio.
But it's Lazio, and it is gorgeous. And so, they had bought this house that had been divided into two houses decades ago, had not been lived in for over 60 years. So, there were definitely challenges. Plus, it's on a very steep, narrow street. For some reason, that's two-way street, even though a car could barely fit up it. So just the logistics, and then you're dealing again with like Italian bureaucracy, but the project was really rewarding, and I'm so happy that my clients are happy. They love their house. It's quite a transformation.
Let's talk a little bit about the project in the sense that it's this townhouse that is completely gutted.
Well, it was one house when it was built over 200 years ago, and then at some point they split it into two houses. And the house had been abandoned. No one had lived in this house for over maybe over 60 years. So it would have been challenging even if someone had been living in the house like last year. But the fact that the house had been empty so long, there was like there was literally a hole in the floor, like to get up to the first level, what we Americans would call the second floor. I had to climb this rickety, very high ladder because there was no other way to access the floor. And there were birds' nests, birds living in the house. And, during the demo, I remember just standing there in this house and seeing these birds flying back and forth. I'm like, I get out of the window. I was like, what is going on?
It was great when I saw, so I might have been live tweeting along with you when I saw Reno Italiano in January, and it was great because it's impactful when you first see like the crumbly wall, and you're like, I was just like, oh my god, like I would have looked at that and been like, later,
right? Or the kitchen when Tracy, that was my client, Tracy and Matt Moses, when Tracy said, oh, I would like the kitchen to be on the ground floor, which if you're in Tuscany, you could do that. The ground floor is where the animals stayed. And I've seen some amazing kitchens built on that floor, and you open up into a field. But that is a townhouse, so you would have like opened up onto the street. And then you have to move all the plumbing, the electrical. It didn't make sense. But when we walked into what was the original kitchen, I just saw the look on her face, and I could tell she was thinking, no, not possible.
So how much of the project would you say were you working directly with artisans as opposed to like sourcing from designers?
Well, I would say I think the kitchen, that's working with an artisan, because we're sitting down. We didn't just go into a kitchen shop and just say, okay, boom, I want that kitchen. That kitchen was custom designed. Like no other kitchen in the world will look like Tracy and Matt's kitchen. That's custom.
I love the kitchen, and what I love, I think that I want everybody to, we're gonna figure out a way that everybody can see this episode. If it means everybody has to email HTTV to see it. When I saw the big reveal, and I thought what was really cool was that yes, it's a historic town, Cicero. The building is 200 years old, and you were able to fuse. Keep the integrity of the history, and then bring in some beautiful contemporary.
Yes, their tastes are they are big on mod, like their style is modern, and I was worried that if we went too modern, we would strip the house of all its character, and I don't like it when a house has no sense of place or no sense of architecture. You have no idea where you are, and I think when you walk into the house, you're in Italy. It could be no other place, even if you were to take some of the elements of the house and put them somewhere else. This house is Italy. And so what we said was, okay, so we're doing modern rustic, heavy on the modern. Because if you go in the other direction and you do it it's too rustic, then it could seem kind of cliche because you're making the house something that it never was. Like, I think sometimes you found out a lot in Tuscany, like the big boom of all the big Tuscan renovations that were happening with Americans or British people come and they buy a place and they're like, okay, we're going to be super authentic. But what is authentic? There were no when these houses were built, there were they didn't even have modern plumbing. Like, so.
And also, I think that's a great point about authentic. Also means authentic in Italy means great design, and that great design can be 21st century design. So you can you're talking about keeping that integrity and not going too heavy on the modern, but bringing in pieces that also set the identity of the property, but keep it contemporary as well.
Right, because at the end of the day, it's not I can't believe I just said at the end of the day. That's something I try. It's funny. But it's not my house. It's my client's house. And because one time someone said to me, well, what is your aesthetic? What is your aesthetic? And yes, there are things that I like or that I respond to more, but I don't live in these houses. My clients do. And it's about the client's aesthetics and the client's taste and what their needs and wants are. And we work together to bring like the best of the best regarding my client's taste. But I've been very lucky too. I've worked with people who have a strong point of view, and sometimes maybe it's challenging if their point of view is very strong, but I learn from that, and I think it's actually exciting to work with someone who is clear about what they like and what they don't like. What is difficult is working with clients who are very indecisive, and that's tough. I do worry about what's going to happen if we don't support local businesses, local artisans, or artisans, period. Look, I'm a realist. Globalization the genie's out of the bottle. But I would say let's try to at least mix it up. Like, if you're going to buy things from a big box store, try, if you can, if budget allows, to buy at least one thing for your room or for your house from a local artisan or that's handcrafted, because that is something no one else could ever, even if they make another coffee table, it will not be your coffee table. It will be something that's unique to your home. And that's what your home should be. It should be a reflection of you and your taste, your style, your lifestyle. And that's why, I know what trends are going on. I'm aware of trends, but I really couldn't care less about trends. The same with clothing. Like, I'm more interested in style and not so much fashion. And I think even more so since living in Italy, like, I think it really has helped my eye. And I think it's just really important as we live in, the world is very interconnected. That's wonderful. The downside with globalization is that everything starts to look the same. One thing I love about Italy and I love about Rome was the fact that you still have small shops here, and it's the human touch, if you will. But again, it's starting to change as more and more big chains come here. I saw what happened in St. Martin, where my parents are from, especially on the Dutch side. What's the point of traveling if every place is going to be exactly the same? Every place has a Starbucks on each corner. Every place has the same Zara. Every place, no, we got to mix it up.
One of my favorite designs or pieces or interiors that you've worked on was more like working on an entire work of art, in the sense that you built a house from, I was going to say from the ground up, but I'm going to say from the beach up.
Yes, I just finished a house in Anguilla.
I just want to tell everybody, it was nothing. It was just land. You started
land.
I find that fascinating. It
was years in the making.
It's like Lego, larger than life.
And the logistics were difficult, because I live here.
But you've worked on other projects. Just so that everybody knows, Arlene has worked on other projects outside of Italy. Yes,
I worked on a project in LA. I worked on one in San Francisco. But there's something about a tiny, tiny island in the Caribbean that made it a little bit more difficult. So, but we had an amazing team, like our contractors, fantastic. We halfway through, we finally brought in a project manager, which I wish we had done it from the very beginning, but you don't know what you don't know. And the house is done.
How long did you work on that project?
It was years. I would say from start to finish, from breaking ground to the completed house, years.
I mean, we can also. I mean, we're not talking decades, guys, but we're
Not
talking
decades.
years. But there, we're also. You were going to say that. Not that you were going to say that I just interrupted, but I was going to throw in. There was hurricane.
Yeah, you have a hurricane. We had Hurricane Irma. You have this global pandemic, but the house is done. It's 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, en suite, and it has very, very high ceilings, like 19 feet ceilings.
I know when you showed me them. Remember, I kept saying when you were she was showing me the pictures, and I was like, I just couldn't even envision that when I initially.
We had to
and
get
that wraparound porch, or that, not
we
wraparound,
have
but
a veranda, a
love
large
it.
veranda, because in the Caribbean that's very important because there's a lot of indoor-outdoor living. We, instead of getting doors, like French doors, or we got bifold or accordion doors that lead out onto the veranda. So when you open them, it's just, you have this incredible view and this breeze is coming in. We had to get the pendant lights over the island custom made, their schoolhouse, because the ceilings were so high you couldn't just buy the pendants. You had to get the cord made extra long.
So it's another mix again of, you really use. I know when you were pointing out some parts of the design, I think there was like, I don't know if it's called an armoire. There was you had local artisans, but with the table. I think.
There. Yes, when you first walk into the property, because you enter from the road, and basically, technically, the front of the house is the road side, not the beach side. The beach side is the back side of the house, or the rear of the house. And we had these custom cabinets made. Quite high. And I remember our project manager was like, well, why don't you just buy them, at a big box store? And I said, no, this is the first thing you see when you walk in. And we had a local carpenter make them. And yeah, it costs more than a big box. But the thing with Anguilla is, because it's such a small island, there are not that many resources for furnishings. Almost everything is bought off island. And a lot of people, when they furnish a property in Anguilla, everything comes in a container from the United States, or maybe from some things from Europe as well. Or also, like with a lot of the hotels or villas, they get everything from China. And I said, it's really important to me that, first of all, it's a new build, and I don't like it when everything in a new build is new, because it feels more like a showroom. There's no warmth to it. And I didn't want everything to be from the United States just because it's in the Caribbean, and the Caribbean is a mix of cultures, and I wanted all the cultures represented. And so we had things, yes, we did have a container come from the States, and we ordered from certain brands that a lot of people will know. And then we had some things that I ordered in St. Martin, where my parents live, from a store that does more, I would say more things come from France and Italy. And I also had things that were locally made. Like I had the bedside tables for the main bedroom. Those were made locally by the carpenter. Again, so I said, why are you buying bedside tables? I mean, why don't you just buy bedside tables? Just get them from, a store in the States, stick it on the container. I said, we can't have every single thing in this room be from the container. We have to, again, mix it up. So our carpenter did an amazing job. I had a built-in, like a bookcase / desk. He built that as well. All the fronts for the kitchen cabinets, he did those. We couldn't have him actually build the entire cabinet, including the guts, because that's was not in the budget. But I did not want, again, it's a beach house, so we went very simple with the cabinets, shaker style. I know a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, white cabinets, shaker style, that's so over. It's timeless. It's a classic. It's a beach house. I'm not, it works for that. Like I said, I don't care about trends. I care about what makes sense for the project, for that house, for that architecture, for the clients. That's more important.
What I like about this house is, more than the other houses that you've done, is that I could potentially stay there.
Yes, you
so
could.
This is what I've been driving at the whole time, is I'm coming to Anguilla. Tell us a little bit about that. It's a vacation property.
Yes, it's going to be available to rent, and there is it's going to be listed with Properties in Paradise shortly, as soon as we get our photos back, and we already have some people who are going to be renting it out next month, and I'm very excited about it because it's really. I mean, these are some strange times that we're living in, and I'm excited that people will be able to, once they jump through not hoops, but once
the protocols,
they will be able to go to a place where they can relax and just get away from it all and enjoy the house. I mean, a house is meant to be enjoyed, and I'm happy that I don't know. I'm just very excited that my clients decided to go in this direction.
Well, I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to visit it. I can't wait. Like, I have to tell you, Xanthe was looking at the pictures and she's like, "Oh, so when are we going?" I was like, "Well, we got to get through some protocols first, but we would love it." And so that leads me to conclude our podcast with the required where we can find Arlene and where we can. So, because I think everybody should jump into Arlene's mind, and the best way to do it is on her Instagram at
Arlene Antoinette Gibbs.
So that's her Instagram. And then if you want to go into her fully, that gives you a front row glimpse into her daily life in Rome, which includes all of the
slice. Yeah, it's more slice of life.
Slice of life.
Less. I mean, some people said to me, "Oh, you should have a separate Instagram for your design." I was like, "No, because it's all connected. It's all integrated. Living here, like I said, it's like my eye is constantly seeing new things. Even though I lived in the city now for over 10 years, I turn a corner and I'm
12. We're gonna be celebrating 12 in April, right?
Yes. No, maybe 13.
Oh wait, is it 2021? It is.
Oh,
hey. So yes, 13 years in April. So if you want to get the full immersion in her projects, you can go to
ArleneGibbsDecor.com. That's my website.
Last up, just telling everybody yet again where they can find the cottage.
It is the cottage at Meads Bay on Instagram. And we're going to have a website up at some point.
And everybody, I want you to do your best to find Reno Italiano. I'm going to have... Reno. Sorry, I said Reno?
Yeah, like Reno, Las Vegas?
You know why? You know why?
Reno, Nevada.
You know why I said that? Because when I'm with you, now this is a specific plug for her sister, Daniela, I get into the tri-state area mode. Now, the reason why they're laughing is because... And I'm saying there because your sister is part of this. Yes, Daniela, this is a plug for the true tri-state area. Philadelphia, New Jersey, New York.
No, it's Connecticut, New Jersey, New York.
Philadelphia, New Jersey, New York.
I'm sorry, it's Connecticut, New Jersey, New York. That is the tri-state. I don't know why Erica keeps trying to front and say that, Pennsylvania
we're going to end this podcast. Everybody's going to go look at Reno Italiano. You're going to love it. I'm going to send you links on my website. You can find all the information about it. I'm going to link you to Arlene's website. And then we're all going to conclude specifically for her sister. This is the tri-state area, Philadelphia, New York, New Jersey.
Erica, basta.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Ciao Bella. If you'd like to know more about today's guest, please visit ciaobella.co and click on the podcast link, or go directly to ciaobella.co/podcast. Want more Italy? You can find all my episodes on iTunes and Spotify and Stitcher. When you have time, subscribe to iTunes and rate the podcast. What are you waiting for? And if you want to be part of the podcast, email me or DM me your Italy questions. To learn more about me and my work, go to my website, ericafirpo.com, and follow my Italy adventures on Instagram at ericafirpo. Ciao, Bella! And a very big thank you and hug to Massimiliano Yonta and Disc to Disc Studios, the producers of Ciao Bella, who continue to make me sound and feel great.